Hey guys, welcome to Warhammer Stuff. So today we have World Eaters versus Votann. So let's go ahead and check out the armies.
Alright, so for today I am bringing 2,000 points of Votann. We did a live stream not too long ago where we featured the Votann for the first time. But so because TTS, this army came out, and I got the book and the box set when it first came out, but there were no models for it on TTS, so we weren't able to play it. And essentially, I had to bring up all these proxies. So there are proxies here and there and stuff just to make do. Some models exist now, some don't. Alright, so basically, I'm actually running a combined league, not a real regular league. Because I played a very specific army, I wanted to give me buffs. And so essentially, I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but my army, all my vehicles have +2 to move. If an enemy has a judgment token, 6s explode on 6s to hit. And as well as, there's one other third thing I can't recall, I'll remember it later. But essentially, this is my list. I am bringing a couple of beat sticks. My warlord is a high cal. He has the extra judgment, grim efficiency. Essentially, yeah, he's high cal. He can give rerolls and stuff. Experienced eye, efficiency exemplar. He's more of a buff character. Then I have my Einhard champion. This one is the super beat stick. Well, no, he's not actually. He has a Dark Star axe, and he is essentially, he's supposed to be tough, but able to handle against hordes. He has Yama's shield, which can give him a damage reduction. It reduces damage to 0, and can apply judgment tokens on enemies that hurt him, or tried to hurt him. And then I have the Einhard champion, this one with a mass hammer. This guy is the tough one. He has a warlord trait, allowing him to reroll wound rolls, and each time a melee attack is allocated to him, the enemy model cannot use rules to ignore the wounds it loses. Yeah, basically he ignores feel no pains, and I can force an enemy to fight last with Akatol Fortress Relic. Very strong. And then I have these Sagittars, which are the same size as Rhinos, so I use them. They're given twin bolt cannons, missile launchers. They're actually pretty good guns, and inside all of them are Chthonian Berserkers. And essentially I have 2 squads. Blue will have like axes and stuff. What was it? Plasma axes. Yellow squads will have the concussion mauls. So good weapon versus very strong weapon, and each squad has one guy with twin concussion gauntlets. And I have 4 of them spread out, 5 in each of these Sagittariuses, and then I have units of pioneers with their heavy rotary cannons and all their buffs, scanners, comms array, stuff like that. And essentially, I have a pretty mobile and melee army, and that is my Votann list.
Alright you guys, so I am playing World Eaters, and I'm playing, well, the World Eaters, because in the book they have 2 whatever, so Disciples of the Red Angel, which is when you take Angron, and then the World Eaters. So lots of Khorne Berserkers, lots of, well, I say lots of 8-bound, but there's actually only 1 unit of Exalted and 1 of the regular, and a squad of Terminators. So basically, this is the first time playing them, so I wanted to kind of try out a bunch of their infantry, which is kind of what they're known for. They used to have like the classic Chaos vehicles, but I'm like, who's about that life? So for my warlord, I actually have Karn the Betrayer, and he has his warlord trait, which is I think it's Arch Slaughterer. So basically, if he's within 3 inches of 6 or more units, he gains D3 attacks. So he could go up to 12 attacks, which is ridiculous. And then I have 2 other HQ. So I have Lord Invocatus, the other unique HQ. And he doesn't really have anything. He's just as is. But he does make units around him, core units, extra speedy by 2 inches. So that's pretty cool. And then I have a World Eater's Master of Execution. So again, I'm just kind of trying what they have. And he actually has a relic, though. He has the Berserker Glaive, which 6s explode with 2 attacks, I believe. Yes. So that could be pretty cool. He's kind of an anti-character thing, but kind of not. So I don't know. We'll see. And then for troops, I have 4 squads of Jackals, and they have everything that they can potentially take. So, whoops. Sorry, guys. And then I have 4 squads of Khorne Berserkers. So 2 squads of 5 and 2 squads of 10. and they have whatever weapons they'll let me take. So the champs have the Berserker Chainblade. No, I guess they all have Berserker Chainblades. Hold on. Yeah. There's 2 Eviscerators in the big squads. The small squads don't have any for points. But the red squad here has the icon. So they, for their Blood Surge, it keeps them from having to do it, I believe. Oh, no. If they're doing an action when they do their Blood Surge, it's automatically completed, so that's nice. And then, so yes, that's it for those. And then I have 1 squad of Chaos Spawns, just points-wise. I had some extra points, so I was like, I'll throw them in there, why not? I have 1 squad of 8 bound, so it's full. And so the champ has Lacerators, and the rest of them have the 8 bound Eviscerators, I believe, yes. And then I have a squad of 3 Exalted 8 bound, and they have kind of a mix of things. And then I have a squad of 5 Terminators. 1 has a Reaper cannon, a Reaper autocannon. 2 have Combi Melta as a plasma Combi Melta. There's a Chain Fist in there. Just kind of a mix of things. And I think there's a Flamer as well. And so just kind of a mix of infantry, and I think it'll be pretty fun. And yeah, that's my list.
Alright, so for the mission today, we're doing the Scouring 2-3, which is Control 1, Control 2, Control More. We have the objective of doing a scan on each objective, and we get 3 points at the end of the battle for each one we have completed. And that is the game. It's completed at the end of the turn. And that is the mission. Alright, so for secondaries, as these guys, I chose Lay Claim for Votann. Essentially, my opponent will set up 3 objectives on the battlefield in no man's land, and I get 5 victory points at the end if I control any of them. I figure, like, because how strong he is, if I'm going to win by a lot, so I basically have to slaughter him, and this will help put me over the edge. No prisoners, he has tons of bodies, tons of wounds. And Assassination, he has 3 characters, I couldn't find a good 3, so that's all I can think of. Yeah.
So I went all World Eaters secondaries. So Blood for the Blood God, I get 2 victory points each turn if a monster, character, or vehicle was destroyed by melee attacks. Or no, by attacks made by World Eater. Oh yeah, melee attacks, yeah. And then 1 victory point for any other enemy unit that was destroyed by melee attacks. So, you know, kill stuff in melee, get points. Pretty easy. The second one is I get 1 victory point for killing a unit on an objective marker. It's called Drowned in Blood. So that's pretty straightforward as well. And shockingly, I say shockingly, but this one involves death as well. Basically, I can give 1, 2, or 3 Blood Tithe points at the end of the battle round, and I get 2 victory points for each Blood Tithe point that I give, to a maximum of 5 per round. So I could try and max it out early in the game, the first 3 battle rounds, or first 3 that I have points for. Or I can give like 1 each and then maybe spike it at the end or something and try and figure out a pattern with that. But so that one's also pretty easy to do, because stuff is always going to be dying. And yeah, so yeah, those are my secondaries. Pretty straightforward, lots of death.
Alright, so for who goes first and who goes second, essentially, so I am doing my second week of Votann, and this time I wanted to do melee. At the same time, he's doing Khorne Berserkers, basically the army. So this is basically a game of who gets to charge who. So a lot of chess movement, a lot of strategic stuff. Whoever goes first, well, for me, if I go first, I'm going to take the middle, going to do the secondary objective there. I have my missions and stuff, do a lot of pre-shooting and stuff, easy shooting and things like that. Try to get as much damage as possible to weaken him because he's ridiculously strong in melee. I'm using Votann's melee. They're strong, they're not that strong. So basically, it's going to be whoever can charge each other first. So being very cautious, very cagey, and then a huge explosion of violence. That's what I think is going to happen in this game. And for me, if I go first, I'll take early points. If not, I'll have a ton of targets to shoot, and I will cage myself in if I go second. and shoot a bunch of targets as best I can. So what about you?
Yeah, so basically I'm just gonna run forward and punch you to death. So
I mean,
it doesn't matter what turn I take because it doesn't matter. The strategy is the same. Technically, I guess I might. Well, no, it doesn't even affect my points because the mission secondary is the one that has
actions.
Activity. Yeah, I forget the word for it.
Actions.
Yeah, action. There it is. So the rest doesn't even matter. So it's kind of a waste of jackals because I thought I might have more to do with them, but whatever. Anyway, so yeah, it doesn't matter to me. If things die, I get blood tithe points. The corn berserkers, every time they get shot at, they can move d6 inches up the board. So honestly, it's just all whatever. So yeah.
Wait, each time? Each time.
Each time.
Each time. That's an interesting one.
That's what it said. Every time they lose a model, so each time an enemy unit shoots at them and they lose a model, they can move d6 inches.
That might be fun to play with a little for my army. All right then. Well, let's do it. Let's see who goes first.
All right.
6.
One.
All right, time to start shooting fools. Votann, turn 1. All right, so the Votann get a pre-game move with their their pioneers, and so orange squad moved onto the center objective, green squad moved to touch that objective and to get line of sight for shooting. All right, so for the movement phase and command phase, so the command phase, the High Cal judged the yellow squad of his guys and his Horn Berserkers up top, so they each have now 1 judgment token. Then he gave basically Chapter Master rerolls to the Pioneers. After that, then everyone moved up. The overall idea was to take objectives and stuff and do actions and such. So Center is going to be doing an action, and Center's going to be doing an action. The rest of the guys, so I wanted to start picking off guys as fast as possible. So on the bottom, I'm really aiming to shoot at the yellow jackals and stuff, just to reduce his abilities and stuff and things like that. So my models moved up. I was paying attention to his move and charge range. I sort of set up my champions and High Cal in a place where they could counter charge, respond, do stuff like that. And then up top, I kind of emptied out one of my Berserker units from the blue Sagittar to sort of be able to potentially countercharge, and well, we'll see. I'm sort of trying to be cagey and lay traps. Alright, so for the shooting phase, first the Brockhere Thunderkin fired their beam weapons at I was originally going to fire at the Invocatus, but I forgot he's a character. Then the Corn Berserkers, forgot about them. So I just mag dumped the yellow squad they had down there. Did a bunch of wounds. Then I had my Pioneers, mag dump them, wipe them out. Then I had my Sagittar on the bottom, fire at his white squad because he could see the corner of them. Killed half of them. Guys in the middle, I thought they could shoot and do an action with a stratagem. I was wrong, it's only infantry. So they did nothing. So the Sagittar blue fired against the purple squad of jackals, did some damage. Then the yellow Sagittar fired against them, wiped them out. Then up top, the Sagittar blue shot against the Corn Berserkers and got them into something. Yeah, and that was the shooting phase. Alright, didn't exactly go how I expected, but I got strategic scan on the center, so I'll just add that now. I have 29 in no prisoners. Lay claims at the end of the game. We forgot to do in the pre, but my opponent just set them up. You'll see them. They're just numbers on the board of the objectives I have to have at the end. And assassination, we'll see what happens. So far, I have no idea how the game's going to go.
Alright, you guys. So I started with the side with Lord and Invocatus because they are much speedier. So my green Corn Berserkers, no one ran on this side, but they were able to move 8 inches, which brought them really close to the center, within 3 inches, so they're pretty good there. My Corn Berserkers, the 5-man squad, moved towards his little Sagittar. Then my Jackals moved up to the objective and started doing the secondary, and then my 8-bound moved up, as did Lord Invocatus. moving up just the board there. Then on the top side for you guys, my red core berserkers moved up, and they're in pretty good range for these berserkers. And everything else around there kind of moved up. So the Master of Executions, the Exalted Eight Bound, the Corn Berserkers and Karn, and the Jackals, they all kind of moved up. The small 5-man squad of Berserkers ran, as did the Jackals with their chain blades. Because the Jackals don't have to do anything, and the Corn Berserkers aren't going to do anything. So I might as well get them into better positions. And yeah, so that was the movement phase, pretty straightforward. Alright, you guys, so for shooting, is basically a bunch of pistol shots. I'm trying to think, my small squad of Corn Berserkers shot at his Sagittarius, they did nothing. Lord Invocatus also tried to shoot at it, they did nothing. The green squad of Berserkers shot at the green Pioneers, and they actually killed one. 3 wounds went through, that was kind of crazy. And then the red squad of Corn Berserkers up at the top shot at his Sagittarius, and 1 wound went through, and so surprisingly good shooting phase for just a bunch of bolt pistols. So yeah. Alright, you guys, so for the charge phase, literally everything that I tried to get in got in on the first go. I'll just go, I should probably go in order that it happened. So the green Corn Berserkers charged his orange squad in the middle, and they rolled exactly a 3, which was the lowest roll I actually got. Kind of annoying, but whatever. But they got in. Then Lord Invocatus charged, he got in, he needed like a 2 or something. And then my Corn Berserkers all the way at the bottom charged his Sagittarius, and they got in. And then my 8-bound charged his green Pioneers, they got in as well. It was actually a decent charge on their part. Then my Chaos Spawn charged his middle orange guys, and they needed a 7. They actually got in within 7. So actually they needed like a 5 or a 6 or something. Anyway, but they got in. And then the red Corn Berserkers at the bottom rolled a 9, high rolling. They got into those berserks. And so yeah, a pretty solid charge phase. Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah. All right, you guys. So combat phase. So my Corn Berserkers all the way at the top swung on his also Berserkers. And so what ended up happening was really interesting. So he had a swing on death effect. So my Corn Berserkers wiped the squad, and then his swing on death effect wiped my squad. So
I also spent 1 CP for cyber stims to make them reroll hits, so that was a big part of it.
Right. So that basically both squads just neutralized each other.
Yep, that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, and so that was his kind of combat unit, so there's really nothing for him to interrupt with, or worth interrupting with. So I basically just went down the board. So I went to my Chaos Spawns next, and I think they did 1 wound to your... 2. Oh, it's 2 wounds, okay. To your bikers, and then the green squad wiped them out. And then they consolidated into the Einherjar champion.
Both of them.
Both of them. Okay, I thought I was misreading that. I was like, is that 2?
Yeah, they're 2 champions, one with an axe, one with a hammer.
Nice. And then my 8-bound swung on his other bike squad, and they wiped those guys out, and then they consolidated into the Einherjar champion. And my Lord Invocatus tried to go through the building, but he's too fat. So he could fly, he just literally couldn't get over the building to land evenly, so he's just on the other side. And then my Corn Berserkers at the bottom actually did 4 wounds to the Sagittarius.
You spent a CP though to do it.
Yes, so I spent a CP for Gory Dismemberment, so 6s to wound, do a mortal wound. I only rolled 1 6, so it wasn't super worth it. So they had 3 regular wounds that actually just went through. And so then he swung back with his 2 champs, and he killed...
I killed 6 Corn Berserkers.
6 of the green squad of Corn Berserkers in the middle, and then he swung with his Sagittarius and did nothing.
Yeah, so we stopped the recording earlier because of an issue, but essentially, so we didn't record it, but both the Einherjar champions, one with the Dark Star Axe and Mass Hammer, killed a total of 6 of them. Yeah, and that was the fight phase.
All right, you guys. So this was a pretty decent turn for points. I was able to do strategic scan, so I got 3 points from that. Then blood for the blood god. I destroyed 3 units. Blood gods the middle unit was on an objective, so I got that one. And then pile of skulls. I donated 3 victory points, or blood tithe points. Sorry, to it, giving me a total of 5 points. And so far, a pretty good turn. A lot of stuff died. And so we'll see. I assume there's stuff in each of the Sagittars, but I don't actually know for sure.
Yes, there is.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we'll see what happens in this turn, because now everything's close enough that, all the gloves are off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll also point out that it's your first turn and you gain 12 victory points. That's noticeable.
Okay, well, I mean, all of their things are about killing stuff, so
Yeah.
once I got into combat, that's probably what was going to happen anyway.
Alright, so for the movement or command phase, the High Cal, it is Eye of Judgment thingy, brought the 8 bound to 2 judgment tokens, and gave 1 more to the Lord Invocatus, or 1 to the Invocatus Lord. After that, he gave Chapter Master rerolls to the Einhard champion with the Mass Hammer, and this is where things got a bit interesting. So in this game, it's beat whoever charges first. My Heinrichen Pioneers died. They were very important for essentially baiting, and then me being able to get a counter charge. So I wasn't too sad that they were gone, but they were important also for holding objectives. So that's essentially the idea going forward. So my yellow berserkers came out of the Sagittar to move up. Blue berserkers came out to deal with 8 bound. Probably yellow berserkers up top popped out of the Sagittar and started doing the action. And the blue Sagittar up top moved in to have line of sight to start shooting at key targets. Yellow Sagittar did the same. Bottom Sagittar is still stuck in combat, and that's pretty much everything I see here. We'll see how things go. Alright, for shooting. Start up top, blue Sagittar fired at his 3 exalted 8 bound champions, and I get I used a command point to re-roll one of the shots, and I get a free re-roll or wound for every unit. That's the other special thing I chose. And I successfully killed all of them except one, and he has 2 damage because he made a lot of good saves. So that guy's still alive, but apparently he can't run forward. Then the yellow Sagittar fired at the blue Sagittar, the other blue Sagittar fired at the whatchamacallit, his Chaos Spawn, yeah. Did really terrible. I rolled horrible. And then, but I killed one off, and then the yellow Sagittar wiped the other guy out. The other Chaos Spawns out entirely. After that, it went down to, I had my Brock Thunderkin fire everything they had at the Lord Invocatus, and he made every single save. That would have killed him. Then I had the Sagittar, yellow one in combat, fire at the Berserkers, killed 3 of them. Then I had the High Call fire his pistol at the Lord Invocatus, and he saved everything. So that was the shooting phase. So High Call was not going to go in. So basically, my blue Berserker squad charges 8 bound, and then my yellow Berserker squad charged his Lord Invocatus. And that's pretty much it. Alright, so for the fight phase, first up, blue squad of Berserkers swung into the 8 bound. I spent 1 CP to give them basically Chapter Master reroll, and that failed hard. He has 4 up invulnerable saves and saved so many. I only ended up killing 2. That was ridiculous. And he had Fight on Death. He spent 2 CP for, which was a waste because you have to do it at the beginning, and only 2 guys died. He killed 1 guy, did a wound back. Since my guy swung, they don't fight on death anymore. So after that disappointment, then he interrupted with his Lord Invocatus, swung and killed 3 of my yellow Berserkers. My guy swung on death, so I had them all swing at the same time because I was next. And he had a lot of good 4-ups. He saved them. I brought him from 8 wounds down to 3, but he's still alive. And then he had his 8 bound swing. And just so you know, my Einhard champion with the Mass Hammer made the Khorne Berserkers next to him fight last as a part of his relic. And so the 8-bound, 3 of them swung on the Einhard champion that was there with the Darkstar axe, and they gave him like 8 wounds, and he had a 4-up invulnerable save, and he failed all of them except one. So he had a relic that would help him ignore one, so I spent a CP to roll 50-50. He just had to make one 4-up and he would live. He failed that too, and so he just straight up died. That was pathetic. Then the other Einhard champion swung and just killed the 4 there. He has 4 attacks, but because of the other trait that I chose for my Votann, I get to reroll 1 hit or wound, and he Warlord trait allows him to reroll all wounds. He basically hit 4. My opponent failed all his saves of 6s, and he wiped out the squad. And and then at the bottom, his Khorne Berserkers did 2 more wounds to my Sagittar. I did nothing back, and that is the current state of the game. Alright, so for points, I controlled 1, controlled 2. Strategic Scan, I completed a second one. Late Claim is at the end. No Prisoner is building up in wounds. Assassination is getting there. I'm running out of scapegoats, and that was a terrible melee phase on my end. Now it's his turn.
Alright, you guys, so for my movement phase, my Exalted 8-bound champion moved towards his Sagittar, the one that's been shooting me this whole game. My Master of Executions moved towards the other Sagittar, the yellow one, and my blue guys moved on to this objective, and they are doing the mission secondary. And then my Khorne Berserkers and Karn actually decided to run because they've been out of the game too long. I know this is only like the 2nd battle round or something, which is kind of crazy. So they are running in and they're on the middle, so now they're actually holding the middle there, which is nice. Nothing fell back from combat. And then my Terminators came in, and so they came in the back middle, so his zone, to just kind of shoot stuff with their meltas and their heavier guns. Then I don't know if they'll get any charges off. We'll see. If they do, that would be cool, though. And that was, I believe, the movement phase. Alright, you guys, so for shooting, I basically have none. So I did have 1 or 2 little pistols. So Lord Invocatus was going to shoot at the Berserks he's in combat with, but he missed on a 2-up. He missed. And then my Khorne Berserkers were going to shoot, but they ran, so they can't actually do anything. They can't even charge. They're Khorne and they can't charge. Which is ridiculous, I think. But that's not important. So then the Terminator shot, they shot their Meltas at the Sagittar. 1 went through, did a single damage, but I couldn't reroll the damage roll because of the Void Armor. Then everything else shot at the High Call, and they did a single wound. So, not great. And that was the shooting phase. Alright, you guys, so for the charge phase, I started with the mild charges. So the Exalted 8-bound champion charged his Sagittar. The blue one all the way at the top. The Master of Executions charged the yellow Sagittar. And then the Terminators tried to charge my his blue Sagittar. Now, I haven't spent any Blood Tithe points yet, because it's theoretically at the end of a phase. So I should have bought some things by now, but not important. Because my rolls weren't even close for it to be relevant. So they tried to charge it, they failed on a 3. So I used a command point to re-roll it, and they rolled a 7. So still not enough. That is one of the reasons why I hate deep striking or warp striking in their case. Because it never actually works for me. So, yep, so they're just chilling like a bunch of derps. And that was the charge phase. Alright, you guys, so for the combat phase, I started with the charges. So my Exalted 8-bound champion swung on the blue Sagittar and did 4 damage to it? No, 3 damage.
Yeah, it's because he whipped hard. He could have destroyed it.
Yeah,
in
he
one
rolled
go.
really bad. And so only 1 went through, but it was still 3 damage. Then my Master of Execution swung on the yellow Sagittar, did 4 damage to it. He did a little better, but it's still not great because he had a lot of attacks. But he also rolled garbage. And World Eaters don't have any discernible rerolls. At least with this army list, no stratagems, nothing. And then he swung next. He swung on Lord Invocatus, and one went through, but it was 3 damage, so it killed him. I used a command point to try and reroll a save.
And I spent a CP to give me the ability to reroll, which was key.
Yes. And then where did I go next? My 8-bound swung on his Berserk guy there. They killed him. Then he swung back and did 2 damage. Then they consolidated into his High Call, who actually didn't swing.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. And then actually, I don't know what happened next.
Well, after that,
you swung somewhere.
Yeah. So, so basically, what happened is the vehicle swung. The Sagittar on the bottom swung on his Khorne Berserkers, did nothing. Swung on the Master of Executions, the yellow Sagittar up top, did nothing. And then the blue Sagittar up top swung and actually hit and wounded his champion, and he failed his save. And so that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and my Khorne Berserkers all the way at the bottom didn't do anything, just in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah, they swung and failed.
Yep, and that was the fight phase. All right, you guys. So for points, I got 2 primaries, so hold 1, hold 2. Strategic scan, I got another 3 points for. Blood for the Blood God, so I killed one of his characters in his turn, which was his
Einar champion
guy. Yeah, there you go. And then I killed one guy, which was a whole unit, because he was the last one. So I was able to get 3 points of Blood for the Blood God. Blood Gods do... I have not done since that first turn. It's only been 1 turn since then, but still. So I still only have 1 point there. And I spent 3 Blood Tithe points to get another 5 points here for Pile of Skulls. So I only need to do that 1 more turn. Of course, I don't know if the game will go longer than another turn. So, but anyway, so I did that, and then I spent 6 6 Blood Tithe points for Total Carnage, which my whole army now on hit rolls of 6 will automatically wound targets. And so that was my turn. Pretty good on the points. Still quite.
Second turn, 41 points. I could see why they were winning tournaments.
Yeah, so so far so good, but we're both starting to run out of units. So this next turn, I think, will basically decide the game. So let's see what happens.
All right, so my High Cal used his Eye of Judgment thing and applied 1 Judgment token to the World Leader's Terminators and 1 Judgment token to the Khorne Berserker's Chainblade up in the middle. After that, then a movement happened where the Sagittar up top moved towards his back home objective and touched it, but apparently he already controls it, or he did his action. Actions completed on the top left one, so my Berserkers move forward to intercept. Sagittar is still in combat. My High Cowl fled combat. My Brockhere Thunderkin moved in the way. My Brockhere Thunderkin moved into the way to get line of sight with their beam weapons and stuff. Then the Einhard champion moved in to get between the Terminators and the 8-bound. And that is it for movement. Oh, and the yellow Berserkers ran towards his back objective. Alright, for shooting, my Brockhere Thunderkin fired their beam weapons at the Khorne Berserkers up in the middle, and because they passed over the 8-bound, they would hit them as well. And since the Khorne Berserkers were over 15 inches away, 2 shots were hit. And so, they managed to kill 4 of them. Then the Brockhere Thunderkin was able to do the same to the 8-bound, and they finally failed their saves, and the 8-bound were wiped out. My Ironheart champion also shot at them before this, but he did nothing really. Or I think he killed off 1, yeah, and then the other 3 were finished off. After that, then at the bottom, my Sagittar fired at the guys that were in melee combat with him, wiped them out. Then the blue Sagittar fired at Akarn the Betrayer, killed him, then my opponent spent a CP to reroll it, and he lives with 1 wound. Then the yellow Sagittar up top fired at the Master of Executioners, or whoever was hitting him, and completely wiped him out. Then the blue Sagittar up top fired at the squad of Jackals on his back objective, and wiped them out. And that was my shooting phase. Alright, so for charges, the blue Sagittar on top right charged the Jackals, got in. Then I saw Karn the Betrayer was 10 inches away from the Berserkers, and I was like, I have reroll to charge, why not try? I need a 10. And then I rolled a 10 perfectly. So they're in. And at the bottom, the yellow Berserkers charged the Jackals and got in. And that was it for the charges. Alright, so for the combat phase, the blue Sagittar up top swung and did literally nothing. Then my yellow Berserker swung on Karn, and they successfully did 1 wound to him, and he died. And then my yellow Berserkers on the bottom did exactly enough wounds to wipe out the squad of 5 that were there. And that was the fight phase, apart from his blue Jackals, who swung back at my Sagittar and did 3 wounds to it. It's ridiculous. And that was the fight phase. Alright, so for my points my turn, I didn't do a strategic scan, but I controlled 1, controlled 2. No prisoners is adding up heavily. Assassination, I've killed it of Karn and his other Discord, so I brought up to 10, so I basically maxed as much as I can get from this, because all his characters are dead. No prisoners, don't know how much that's no prisoners, shoot, I've already beaten the 100 points there. Lay claim, I will soon have that. It's looking really good, but I'm still pointing out that my opponent's secondary game is ridiculous. He's only had 1 turn. Well, no, he has had 2 turns. But 2 turns and he's gotten to this point, so feeling pretty good.
Alright, you guys, so for movement, basically my Terminators moved towards his Thunderkin and High Call, and I guess his champ. And my Khorne Berserker on the middle objective moved down to, or I guess moved up to the top left objective. And my Jackal stayed in combat with his Sagittar, because who knows, they might be able to do something about it. And that was my fight phase. Alright, you guys, so I took a couple pistol pot shots, none of those did anything. Then the Terminator started shooting. I put both meltas into the Einherjar champ. One went through, but he saved it on a 4 Bindvuln, and then everything else went into the Brokir Thunderkin, and 2 damage went through, but not enough to even kill 1 guy, so probably not worth it in the end. So that was the shooting phase, actually pretty uneventful. Alright, you guys, so for charges, it was mostly depressing. The Terminators needed a 5, they rolled a 4. So I used a command point to re-roll that, and they rolled a 4 again. And so they failed miserably this entire game. And then my Khorne Berserker champ charged his yellow Sagittar and rolled double 6s for his charge. So, he got in without a problem. He actually wants to kill things.
And
that was my charge phase. Alright, you guys, so for the combat phase, literally nothing happened. The Khorne champion swung and failed. He had a bunch of 1s, a bunch of 2s, and 2 5s, so no 6s. Literally nothing. And then all the Jackals did nothing as well, but in much quicker time frame. And yeah, that was the fight phase. Alright, you guys, so for points this turn, I only got 2 primary, so I wasn't able to do strategic scan, just because his Sagittar in the middle was actually touching the objective. Otherwise I would have been able to get the 3 points here with my Khorne champion. Blood for the Blood God, nothing actually died, so no points. Blood Gods do again, same thing. And then Pile of Skulls, I was expecting to kill stuff with my Terminators, so I could put points here and get an additional 5. However, that did not happen, because they suck. And so, literally just my primary. So really bad turn for points. And then we're actually going to call it here, because I don't have really anything else to do. And yeah.
Alright, so MVP, LVP, we've called it, and victory for the Votann, because they just can keep scoring more points and the enemy is too whittled down to do anything. So for, actually I forgot even to grab an LVP. Oh, I know which one. So, LVP, Einherjar. Not this one particularly. This is the one with the mass hammer. I don't know where the other guy is. So the guy with the axe, he killed 2 berserkers, then failed every single save, despite having a relic that makes him ignore damage from 1 save and stuff, and including all his damage reduction and all that. So, the Einherjar champion with the Darkstar axe absolutely failed. Did poorly. Had opportunity just handed to him, and he screwed it up. And then MVP. It's a close tie between the Sagittars and these Berserkers. More specifically the ones with the, not the concussion gauntlet, but the mauls. A reason is the Sagittars, despite being very fast vehicles, upgraded even so with 2 inches more movement, so they have 14-inch movement, their firepower is ridiculous for a transport. They are pretty points heavy, but they can fly around the game, transport, and their heavy anti-tank or elite weapons is really, really good. And they have extra stuff for dealing with character, with with a bit of hordes or regular troops. So it's ridiculous how strong and valuable these are. Like, I thought they would be like throwaway transports. No, they were the mainstay of my battle line, picking off everything left and right. And then my Berserkers, well, they did, well, the funny first fight when the 10 Khorne Berserkers and the 5 of them just killed each other to death. That was funny. That was the whole section just deleted itself. But the thing about them was the fight on death. That was the big thing. Like, they just, it didn't matter if I was charged or anything. Just fight on death natively. That was a big deal. And despite all the strategic sacrifices and stuff and how powerful the Sagittars, I'm gonna go with these guys because their fight on death was so strategically useful. It helped me. It protected me from mistakes. That's actually
what kept you in the game, I think.
Yeah. On top, that would have been a huge issue, probably-ish. And on bottom, it was also a big issue. Would have lost a lot more. The Lord Invocatus might have survived. Yeah, he probably would have. It's like, and a lot of key points, it really was keeping me through the game. The only part is when in the middle, facing against your Exalted 8-bound, that those guys just, well, you made all those saves. Yeah. But apart from that, it's like, I think that was pretty much it. Like, these guys, really a lot of room for error you can make with them. Surprised considering they don't really have armor, but their feel no pains are really good.
Yeah. If I had anything that was shooting, though, it probably would have been different. But because I was all melee, which is their thing, it was just.
Now, I was melee and shooting.
Yeah.
All right. So what about you?
Well, so MVP, I actually have a lot of competition, but LVP is just one.
Terminators show up, kill nothing.
Garbage. I hate them so much. I'm trying to even think of a scenario where they'd be good. They don't even feel like they fit in the army. I think literally just because they're Chaos Space Marines, they have them. Mm-hmm. But they just don't. They don't fit. They have guns. They have some power fists, but they mostly just have these accursed weapons. So they're just like, I guess like maybe against horde kind of stuff, they'd be okay because they have a lot of attacks at a decent AP, single damage though, and then they have guns, I guess. But they were not good. I did not like them. They
showed up, killed nothing.
Yeah, they really just don't fit with the rest of the infantry, or even the army. It feels like I would rather have spent those points elsewhere, having known now what I know. And so easily LVP, even the Jackals did more useful things, whether it was blood type points or actual objective points. So the Terminator is just a flaming pile of garbage. Hate them. I'm sure there's some people that could maybe do some really good stuff with them. I'm not one of those people, clearly. So MVP though, it's pretty close for me. Most of the infantry actually did really, really good, I thought. So the Exalted 8-bound, the only issue I find with them is that they're limited to a unit of 3. So you have to be really careful with them, and they're not characters, so you can't really protect them. So you need like a Rhino or Land Raider or something, I think.
Yeah, because when I saw them out in the open, I targeted them for shooting.
Yeah. But they have a lot of attacks and a lot of damage, and a 4-up invulnerable save. They also have an ability that keeps people from falling back. It's a 4-up, so it's a 50-50, but still. They can deep strike, so they're pretty decent. Now, the one guy, when he finally got into combat, whiffed pretty hard. but the damage potential is super strong with them.
Hey, just wait for 10th edition when these guys can deep strike on your opponent's turn if you go second and just put them in somewhere in cover with their 9-inch move, and then on your second turn you just have them pop out, just kill whatever.
Yeah, it's gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then the Khorne Berserkers, honestly, if they had killed a little bit more, they would be my MVP for sure. But they were the mainstay. They got shot and they're able to move up the board. Huge thing. Mm-hmm. They have just a ridiculous amount of attacks at a decent AP, and so they were able to do numbers. They were able to hold objectives because they're troops. So they're actually, I thought they were really good. And then the 8-bound champion, the 8-bound, not the exalted ones, because these guys can be in a squad of 6 or 7. These I would say are my MVPs. They just were able to do, like, the one squad that I had literally just kind of mowed its way through the middle until it finally died. And they were shot to death. They weren't even really beat in melee combat. And so I would say the 8-bound are the MVPs of this game.
Yeah, they should have died in that first charge by the Berserkers, but my goodness, you made so many ridiculous saves.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a 5-up invuln, so it's not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. I say easy, like it's any skill, it's rolling dice, but still.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's MVP, LVP. Alright, as far as Votann, I could not really do a true melee army because just like, there's not enough pure melee. They're mostly tanky shooty, but the melee that they do have, oh my goodness, that is ridiculous what they do. Yeah, Einhard Champion is a mixed bag. I brought 2, but it wasn't that good. High Call was good for his buffs, but he's not the greatest fighter. Interestingly, this time, because I had such a specific list, and me when I had my special unique build with my... I didn't have a league, I had a special custom one. It really helped a lot with the game. Although I forgot to do the 6s explode on all my guys who were not the Berserkers swinging. I forgot my vehicle should have also done that too, for some of these guys. Yeah, but overall, Votann is a surprisingly interesting army. Very elite heavy, because I had very few units, but the units I had really made it count. And so the melee was like, man, I was just able to stand toe-to-toe with the Khorne Berserkers. Fight on death was a big deal. And the transports that transported them were such heavy bastions of firepower. It was ridiculous. So like, I'm actually really surprised at how well these guys do. I would probably build a Votann melee list, really, for the fun of it. So what about you?
Well, I enjoyed the World Eaters for the most part. I think now looking at it, I would have taken probably the same amount of Jackals, or maybe a little bit less, but I would have taken them into smaller squads, literally just for blood tithe points, because they die super easy. Their objective secured, so they can do actions and stuff, but honestly, they're really just blood tithe point fodder. I would not have taken the Terminators because I hate them. But I did enjoy the army. Yeah, so the Berserkers were interesting because they don't have armor, so if they got shot, they would have died a lot easier, and it would have, you know, I wouldn't have had so many, like, I don't know, negative combats where my guys die, your guys die, everybody just dies.
Yeah. But to be fair, I put them in transports to avoid anything like that, or to be at the right spot.
Well, not that I had any shooting anyway, but yeah, so it was interesting. I really enjoy the World Eaters. There's a couple of things I found that are interesting to me, which is the blood tithe points. I think it's a really interesting challenge to know when you want to spend the points on them, because it was only the second turn, but I had 11 points by the end of it, blood tithe points, just because of how much stuff was dying.
Yeah, so that's what I hear about the World Eaters, is that you want a lot of small squads to farm points up.
Yeah, and so I guess the balance is knowing, okay, I want to actually use some of these points or spend them, or spend them on the secondary objective or whatever it is. But just knowing when to spend your points, I think, is important, and what to spend it on. So all of the blood tie things are all melee. They technically have a 6-up feel no pain that you can do, and they have something against mortal wounds, but that wasn't obviously relevant here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really interesting balances. I wish I would have been able to do some stuff with Karn, but whatever. I didn't care much for the Master of Executions. He wasn't like the greatest. He wasn't bad, but I mean, he just got he got shot. So what are you gonna do? So I probably would have done a little more, maybe vehicle stuff. The 8-bound can do strategic reserves and come in turn 1. So maybe a little bit more of that might have been something, or maybe a Land Raider or a Rhino to transport, because the Exalted 8-bound can do a lot of damage. There's only 3 of them, so you could fit 3 squads in a Rhino or something.
Yeah,
or
well, don't forget, you got a bunch of first-turn charges. So the main thing was the counter charge. So I was fine sacrificing my Pioneers and stuff so that I would get a guaranteed punch back, and then after that it's just the fight on deaths and the stalling and stuff like that allowed me to survive well enough to be able to punch you back harder. I think that when you consolidated your giant green squad here into my 2 Einhard champions, that was definitely a mistake.
Maybe. I forgot to use my stratagem at the time, but the fight on death one, because then you killed like 5 of them.
6
of
of
those
them.
guys, right? So they could have all swung back on that turn, but I literally just forgot about it. So that actually might have wiped your champions. But so I enjoy the World Eaters. I think they're really interesting. And so this time was just all infantry and like base character. Well, I guess base characters. They were mostly named characters, but and so playing with that, and so next time it'll be Angron and that second section. So this was World Eaters book has 2 armies essentially in it. So there's the World Eaters, the actual Space Marines, and then there's Angrons, which is mostly demons and the 8-bound guys. And so it'll be interesting to see, because then the balance between them, I think, will be interesting for me at least. So I enjoyed World Eaters. I think they have a surprising amount of they seem like a really straightforward army. You just run forward and punch stuff. But
very strong secondary game. Very strong secondary game.
Yeah, and so but there is actually more to them. You have to be really careful in like your deployment, and like blood tithe points, and you want to be careful in how you get them up the board. And so there is actually a fair bit of things to consider with them, but I mean, once you get there, they hit like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
I just got to figure out where the rerolls come from, because it turns out Karn had the rerolls to wound. Not that mattered against your void armor, yeah. So just trying to figure out where rerolls and like unit buffs come from will be important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed them.
All right then. All right, GG's GG.